workplace violence takes on shape in many, many different aspects here. So in looking at it, you're dealing with homicides and robberies and beatings and sexual assaults, and these are all things that can occur within the workplace. I know it's hard to imagine, but this is part of workplace violence that does occur. Also, now you're looking at emotional abuse, intimidation, and domestic violence that can occur. And especially if you have somebody that is perhaps dating within that particular organization and they're being stalked or they're being bullied, and then the creation of anxiety for the person that is being targeted is way up there. The person can be from an other outside entity. It can be from a person that is right next to the person in the office, and creating a lot of havoc for that person and creating high anxiety. But again, it's just going to depend on the circumstances, and it will depend on the situation there for the creation of workplace violence. As far as the classifications of workplace violence, there are a few here. So in this busy slide, as you can see, the number one is the violence is going to be committed by criminals entering into the workplace with no connection to the organization. And you're saying, now, wait a minute, Dr. Mylan, how can that be? How can the criminals just come inside and just create workplace violence? Because they want to. That's why. This is what they're good at. This is what they enjoy doing. I know it sounds sick, and it is, but you have to understand that these are the types of people that you may be dealing with in the future. Hopefully not once again, but please understand that these are the types of people that are out there that want to create havoc. They want to create anxiety. They want to create mischief because they find fun and enjoyment in this. Unfortunately so. The second one there, violence directed at an employee by customers. Well, if you happen to have people that are customers and they were not happy with the employee that assisted them, whether it's going to be, for example, at a local coffee shop, well, now they have an opportunity to come in there and be violent because they have all the stuff that is there. And what is that? Well, they have the workplace environment. They have the person that's basically in that environment. And maybe that they watch that person for a week and notice that person is always closing the shop up. And unfortunately, what better time or place to create workplace violence than to have that matter take place from a few customers, perhaps, that are working alongside one another. Then violence that are going against coworkers by a former employee. Perhaps there was an employee that was there, and then all of a sudden, mischievous things were taking place, and that particular employee was fired, and now all of a sudden, that particular employee is coming back and wanting to cause harm, cause mischief, and may cause other problems within the organization, such as creating a bomb threat too. So that's another one where a former employee may go against a coworker that perhaps turned that person in to have that person terminated. And finally, violence by a personal employee against another employee. So it's just going to be someone that perhaps they were dating at the time, and unfortunately things didn't work out, and then all of a sudden now there's going to be violence from one person or the other. A lot of times, and you're probably thinking, well, it's going to be a male going against a female. Well, not really so, because there aren't really any profiles that are matching each and every time saying that the male is going to be the aggressor in this. There's a lot of occasions, although you don't hear about them as much, there are a lot of times where females are the aggressor and create workplace violence as well nowadays. So keep that in mind as we go along, that these profiles are going to be fluid, they're going to continually change, and it's not going to be the typical stereotype that we may have already created an image in our minds towards. In order to mitigate some of those circumstances with workplace violence, there's also the opportunity there for workplace security. And what you need to do is meet with your local police departments, PD, and private security, as well as the local security agencies. And this takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort, but in order to minimize some of the emergent situations that can occur, these are some of the people and organizations that you need to work alongside in order to help out your own workplace safety. Then creation of training and educational opportunities. We talked about this in the previous weeks, and here it is again. This is one continual theme that I cannot emphasize enough, that training and education always helps out people. Whether they grab one piece of information out of an entire hour, that might be the piece of information that might save their life in these given situations when a workplace violence or a bomb threat or evacuation taking place, whatever it may be. Keep in mind, training and education, top notch. And then identification of jurisdictions taking charge, meaning that in some instances, it might be the local jurisdiction having authority, it might be a combination of jurisdictions, or it might be a state organization, or it may be the federal organization that's going to come in and take charge of that particular security or that situation. And then definition of procedures for 24 to 48 hours. What happens after a workplace violence incident has taken place? What are we going to do now? Who's going to be involved? What's the situation? Yes, that's what you need to understand, that business continuity needs to take place, but also you have to incorporate the people that were involved. You have to incorporate the psychological issues that may be entailed in some of these certain circumstances, as well as trying to get the business back up and running within a decent amount of time, between 24 and 48 hours. In switching gears here a little bit, let's talk about computer data protection. And computer data, we know, is very, very finicky, and it's something that is very accessible nowadays, even with the greatest fire stops and firewalls there. But we also have to think about the physical environment regarding computer data. Fire hazards are the most common and for threatening data, meaning that if there's a fire, even with the greatest firewalls and even with some of the things that are saved on disks or whatever thumb drive you may have that are encrypted, those things can be burned. So fire hazards are everywhere, and you have to understand that even like energized electrical equipment, both externally and internally, can make an impact. So if something happens to what we refer to as fries outside, and then it leads to the destruction of your computer data because there's a surge, that happens. It could blow it out if it's not saved properly. And also you have data breaches. We can see where there are tons of data breaches on a daily basis, whether it's going to be dealing with airlines, if it's dealing with critical infrastructure, or if it's going to be dealing with our governmental organizations. There are several data breaches that can cause havoc. It also can cause imminent health problems due to the fact that many of the medical records can be extrapolated and taken for other uses, shall we say, that are not so nice. So remember that you have fire hazards that can make an impact on the data, as well as any surges that are out there, as well as any type of cyber attacks that can occur, which are numerous going on currently throughout the globe. So now you're saying, how do we mitigate some of these circumstances? Well, I'm glad you asked, class. That's the reason why we're here. So we're looking at information protection, physical access, climate control, fire safety suppression systems, and electrical power and data surge protection. Yeah, the physical access, meaning to make sure that your data is housed properly. So if it's in a room full of papers and oily rags and such, that's probably not a good idea because it's not going to be protected. So you need the physical access there that may be in a cemented area, a steel vaulted area, or whatever it may be, in order to maintain those servers, and say that isn't going to work. Climate control. You definitely don't want to put probably your data or your computer in 150 degrees, or even out there in the freezing cold in some of these areas that don't have insulation. That's common sense. I would hope that it's common sense. So climate control needs to be there, in a current 72 degrees is normally a good bet for a lot of these computer systems. Fire and safety suppression systems, these have to be installed. I do believe that there are codes and also regulations that are helping our organizations, but we also have to work alongside our IT departments in seeing where the technology can be located, especially the main hub and the main server. And then the almighty electrical power and the data surge protection. We need that. We can see where our own computers, for example, may have this surge if there's a lightning strike, and if we don't have a surge protector, that can definitely damage or wipe out anything that we have on our computers. So it definitely will be necessary to have electrical power that is going to be available, but also have surge protection made available that's housing all the data, the storage, and the information, as well as the personal computers that may be there at the desks of the organization and the personnel using them. Further data issues, but just when you thought it was safe to turn your laptop on, oh, we have more for you. Yes, we're just going to talk a little bit more about what's going to happen here. So you have a power spike, yes. So it might not even be a rainy day. It might just be a normal sunshiny, bright day, and all of a sudden you have a power spike where it's going to just blow through the data system and blow through the computer. That could be bad, Ray. Yes, that could be very bad. So you have to understand that these things are going to take place. Understand that, believe this or not, plumbing issues and computer hardware failure. You don't want to house data and place it on the main floor, and if it's going to be near plumbing or if it's going to be near a lavatory. Probably a bad idea. Probably move that and shift it away from there, or find another place to house it. Up off the ground, preferably a little bit higher than a couple inches off the ground, but you get the point here. Water and electricity do not mix. Water and data do not mix. Computer goes down, very bad. Computer stays on, very good. Okay? Work can be accomplished. Also, you have the heating, ventilation, and the air conditioner unit that can malfunction. If that does happen, you must have some type of a backup, perhaps a fan system, whatever it may be. But if they go down for an extended period of time, then your data can be compromised due to the fact that your computers and the routers and everything can have issues. And finally, sewage backup. You're going to say, well, Dr. Mylan, how can that be? Well, very easily, especially if a lot of the data and the servers are going to be stored in basements and in a lot of hospitals and facilities. Lesson learned from my facility when we flooded out in 2007, that a lot of the information and data servers happened to be in the basement. And when the water came in and flooded us out, that took care of the data servers and took care of a lot of other things that were our boilers and our engineering devices that we had down there were all fried in an instant, because the water, as soon as the cold water fell on the hot boilers and the steam came out, you can just well imagine what took place. It wasn't good. So lesson learned. Now they were in a secure area, in a secure room, way up in the middle of the building, where it's most structurally sound, and within an area that had proper ventilation as well as backup as far as HVAC was concerned. So lessons learned, but these are the types of things that can occur out there as far as disasters are concerned and dealing with data issues. As far as standby power systems are concerned, you have different system types. You have battery-operated systems, pretty self-explanatory. Your generators, which are backup generators, which can automatically start should the power go down. And then an alternate power source. Well, you're looking at triple-ended power stations and then a standby generator. So you have a backup generator to the generator that's backing up the regular power. So if you have all three of these, I think you're in pretty good shape. However, anything can happen. You have to remain flexible, but being able to be prepared, that's the whole purpose of this slide as far as standby power systems. And then understanding that you need to have an uninterruptible power supply, UPS. No, I do not mean United Parcel Service. I mean uninterruptible power supplies. This way, you have the continual flow of information, continual flow of communication, and being able to work during that time of the emergency. And this may also be necessary when recovery and business continuity efforts are going to be impacted. Again, if your organization happens to be damaged by fire, flooding, tornado, whatever it may be, and you still need to get people to work and the systems up and running, you need a power supply. And you're going to have to think outside the box sometimes in an effort to get your computers back up and running, as well as some basic functioning for your organization in order to continue to have financing, as well as let people know that you're up and running and that you are coming back. It's just going to take a little bit of time. And what determines some of the systems that we're looking at? Well, in the previous slides, we're looking at basically mechanical, but this one is a combination of them all. So you're looking at people, you're looking at human safety. As far as the equipment is concerned, then you're looking at data processing centers and the availability of data processing centers. And finally, then you have the entire building. All support systems that are there that are going to assist in maintaining proper functioning, such as lighting, HVAC, elevators, communication systems, etc. These are all going to be determinants there, and normally they're all going to be interwoven and work alongside one another. So it's not just going to be one at a time, but it's just going to determine if you have a people-based organization, now you're looking at human safety for that particular system. Equipment-based organization where you're housing a lot of equipment, perhaps with limited personnel, well, then you're looking at data processing centers that need to be updated and something that's going to be external and perhaps off-site. And then again, the entire building, well, that means that you're looking at a hospital, and all these, the lighting, HVAC, elevators, communication, and personnel are all going to be interwoven into that particular facility for that entire building system determination. And to summarize all this, some of it may be not so interesting, shall we say, because it's just dealing with data and dealing with power systems, but try and run your organization without data. Nowadays, try and run your organization without power. This is the reason why I want you all to understand the importance of having this available to your organization, yourselves, and whoever else may be involved in an effort to get things back and running. So once again, proper training and education is going to be necessary in order to update people, in order to let them know the reasons why these things are important. Proper lighting is there and a means of egress for any type of situation, especially if there happens to be a bomb threat, if there's dealing with a data breach of some type, and there's a threat to violent issues within that organization for that time. Also, you have to understand that there needs to be testing and maintenance of the equipment that's there. I can't emphasize that enough either, that being able to test the equipment and maintain it at least on a monthly basis to try and support your systems there is imperative, because once the systems go down, at least you know what to do and how to do it. Whereas in many situations or occasions, there may be personnel that are not quite sure on what they're doing with the systems once they do cave in or once they do fall down. And then finally, review the location to ensure safety. And that's basically dealing with the entire building, it's dealing with personnel, and it's dealing with your data. And understanding that the data and the power systems are going to be an integral role in being able to function with business continuity and recovery efforts for whatever the situation may be. But keep that in mind as you move along in developing your policies and your plans. And once again, I'd like to thank you for your attention this week. I hope that you were able to get out some valuable pieces of information, some nuggets that you can use, as well as finding some of those topics a little bit more interesting than what they may appear to be in the book. I do wish you a good week. I hope that you learned a lot this week, and I look forward to working alongside you in the upcoming final weeks here as we make our turn towards the end of the term. And if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to reach me, either text me, email me, or feel free to give me a call as well. Blessings, and thank you for your attention once again.